Upload full screen, share the entire screen, and beautiful. Give a little introduction too, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh wait, let me.
Oh, did you guys-
Should I download it? Or did you share with me?
I, I, I mailed him. Just download it.
Okay, wait, let me just download that, John.
You just have it? Yeah, it's right. Three? Yeah. You want to start?
I'll go stop. There you go.
Yeah.
Wait, that's sick. I saw you follow me and I was like, wait, I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't know how to just, somebody brought you up. Like, in my grade, that was.
Wait, how? That's
I don't even remember how you went.
Wait, no, that's cool though.
Yeah,
Is this good, Chris?
yeah, that's good.
Okay, just tell me, or I can give you this.
Let me not break this
Just put it anywhere. Maybe that works. Sorry. And then the laptop mic is what's picking you up for the Zoom recording.
Okay, so.
You don't have to talk to it, but just don't be like.
Got it. Got it. All right, so, hey guys, I'm Chris. Today I'm giving a little kind of breakdown on my thoughts on tech recruiting, some insights, and some tips of the trade. So a little bit about me. I'm from Hagerstown, Maryland. I'm a senior in the college, studying computer science and math. Also with math, I co-founded Hoy Developers, before PM, and currently I'm head of growth. So I kind of talk about the clients, help bring in new clients, that kind of thing. The past 2 summers, I've interned at JP Morgan, where I worked as a data scientist, first as a fellow, and then I was a summer analyst, and I am incoming. And next year I'll be coming in as an analyst again.
That's the heat, sorry.
On their applied AI ML team as a data scientist, under their corporate investment bank, under their market operations side. So to kick things off, timeline wise, I think that for who's a freshman, you raise your hand. Okay. Oh, okay. Almost everyone. This is a great time to kind of figure out like what you like in CS. This is kind of a big world. If you want to do software engineering, if you want to do like PM, if you want to do machine learning, data science, kind of figure out like what do you like, talk to teachers, they'll kind of help you out, figure out what you're interested in. A big thing about this kind of time, I think, is personal projects. I think that's the best way to learn is find stuff you're interested in. I love soccer. I did a lot of stuff around soccer, a lot of stuff around finance. That's kind of like my interests. So start trying to build those. And they're a great way to kind of get started on your resume, especially if you don't have an internship yet because you're a freshman. It's a great kind of way to learn new frameworks, learn new languages, and kind of have that initiative in your resume. And then sophomore year, you can really start looking into focusing on learning leak code, kind of like the evil thing that everyone talks about with tech recruiting. Kind of start delving into that. Start applying to fellowships and software programs because there's so many. There's so many great ways to kind of get into a pipeline for a company that nobody really knows about. There's so many pathways programs you can apply to. And I think it's kind of the hidden gems of tech recruiting. If you apply early and younger to all these programs, you kind of have a heads up your junior and senior year. And then junior year is really about kind of more grinding leak code and more applying internships. And then senior year, looking for that full-time conversion or looking to apply to more full-time opportunities. So what I think recruiters seek, I kind of broke this down into kind of the 3 different verticals, but I mean, they all kind of overlap. Software engineering specifically, what I found for speed recruiting is the kind of the DSA aspect of it is very important. Like learning what all these keywords mean, like being able to code object-oriented, learn about inheritance, polymorphism, like all that big stuff is super important because you're going to learn across all these companies. They're kind of using the same kind of base knowledge of what they expect students to have. So it's really important that you kind of have that kind of key breakdown. But then also kind of the non-scholastic things like GitHub, learning how to use tools like Jira and Trello, like those kind of tools. So if you get experience either in your personal projects, putting on GitHub, learning how to use version control, learning how to use Git, puts you well ahead of the curve, especially when you're a freshman and sophomore. If you're in data science basically is an applied math. So trying to hone in on your stats, trying to hone in on your SQL, on your Python for data science is really important. Data science interviews are very much about telling a story. So when you do these interviews, we're going to ask you, like, what does the data mean? How can you relate it to like business impact or some kind of actionable insight? So that's there. And then machine learning, kind of another subset of data science. That's also very, very important of not just, the buzzwords, but can you actually implement a problem, kind of build towards a solution towards that. So I spent a lot of time in machine learning, trying to make personal projects around that, learning about, okay, what is a tensor, what does time series mean? What does it mean to try to use like a coded device, all that kind of stuff, that kind of good stuff. And these are stuff you really learn, I think, more when you're doing it yourself than just taking like some like upper graduate course or that kind of stuff, because you're really the one kind of driving your own learning at that point.
You go back.
This one?
Yeah, you're about to talk about it, but just because we're all freshmen, can I get a raise of hand? Does anybody not know what leak code is? I didn't really know what leak code was, so I was like sophomore, maybe junior.
Okay.
Are you about to talk about it?
Yeah.
I just wanted to gauge.
Okay, we catch. So in terms of resources, leak code, people always talk about leak code, and the reason is technical interviews, they're kind of all built around this framework of the interview sits you down is kind of in this room and he goes, there's some abstract problem, code up a solution. And it's more than just like a leak code website. There's HackerRanks, there's code bases, like all these other ways that they will have you do it. But ultimately, they all come down to the framework of being a leak code problem. So in terms of what you should do when preparing for any kind of tech role, leak code is really important because leak code is kind of the avenue of how you will learn the kind of experience and have that kind of brevity in different kind of problems. They'll give you mainly the confidence, I think, to go into the room. In terms of just like, because leak code's so, there's thousands of questions and you have no idea what they're going to ask you on like interview day. So there are many other websites that I think are really important to kind of help you frame your leak code studying. Two I like in particular are Grind75 and Decode.io. And the reason for that is Grind75, you can put in the amount of weeks you have into an interview, and it kind of just curates like a problem plan of you should do these problems each day. If you want to put like 8 hours a day, I mean, that's good. I'm not saying you should do 8 hours a day, but like, let's say if you wanted to do 1 hour a day, like that kind of thing, it will kind of like make up a plan for you, like a roadmap. And then Decode.io is cool because the whole point of Decode questions is every question kind of falls into some kind of pattern. And Decode kind of breaks down into the patterns and the patterns build off each other. So kind of this is like digestible, like visual kind of avenue of like kind of a roadmap of how to learn the core topics. The one top right, the GitHub logo is simplified job GitHub repo. I put that in there because people always ask me where to apply for jobs, especially your sophomore, junior year. And everyone's like, I go on LinkedIn, I go on Handshake, I apply for jobs there. And I always advise, well, I don't advise against doing that, but I advise going to somewhere like the simplified GitHub repo first. And the reason is LinkedIn pulls jobs, like when Google jobs, like internship, LinkedIn will pull that like 2 days later. But at that point, like think of how many kids have already applied for that job. And you always want to be one of the first people applying because recruiters kind of see this on a like rolling basis. Something like the simplified GitHub repo, the second it's posted anywhere, it's already on there. So when I was like really recruiting sophomore year, I would check that page like every day, basically. So that way I could always try to be one of the first people to apply. I think that's really important. CodePath is just another resource to kind of learn how to do a technical interview. You can sign up for classes. You have a lot of ones over the summer. I did one my sophomore summer, I think. And it's just kind of like a curated experience. If there's a teacher, they put you in groups, you solve problems together. I found that really useful. You can also kind of learn on your own, which was great. And then lastly, this Discord. Discord's kind of like a really, I don't know, like techie nerdy thing. It's kind of funny, it's in the recruiting section. But I found this kind of cool because there are these entire Discord channels just for if you're recruiting, you can go in there, see what other people are doing, see what the process is like. People even get referrals in there. They have channels just for like giving out referrals. You can see what companies dropped. You can see how past people converted. You can kind of see the entire landscape of people in your shoes now, or maybe a year or two older than you as to what they're doing. You can talk to them like a lifetime, which I think is really cool.
I want to quick show you guys just so it's not only done verbally. Because this is kind of like the best way to figure out like what jobs are even out. Do you want to
Yeah,
do
so
it some justice? I have no idea.
so like there's a new grad repo, for example, for I think most of you guys, like maybe in a year or two. you want to take crack at like this kind of repo. So these are some internships. So yeah, but for software engineering, product management, oh shoot, I press.
To the back here.
Yeah. And then you scroll down, right? It's like 0 days ago. So these are all posted today. And if you want to enter your LinkedIn, you probably see them in like a week, maybe, right? So it's cool that's all in this one place. And you can kind of like look by location, like if you want to be in New York or I don't know, like SF, like it kind of tells you like I think I like the little emoji there. It tells you what teams are hot, which means there's a lot of volume on like this ramp one, for example, or that Oracle one. So I just find it really useful to kind of just check in, try to update. And also just me being aware of like what jobs are out there at any certain time. Is it this one? Yeah, yeah. For experience, I think joining clubs is really big. Devs is a great one to be in because software engineering club, software development club, that's what you want to do. It's like this is the best way, I think, to get experience, especially when you're younger, is have an organized structure for it because it's hard to find a startup. I think off the bat, and just having that kind of framework of there's a club of upperclassmen who want to help you, and there's already a client there, like already in front of your face, I think it's super helpful. Other clubs on campus, there's analytics, data science. Georgetown Ventures also has like a little bit of like a tech aspect too. And I can think of a couple others, so that's great. I already talked about personal projects, but yeah, I think it's really, really important to just build projects on stuff that you want to do. So whatever you're kind of passionate about, like outside of coding or outside of your job, try to find a way to incorporate that into a project so it's more fun for you and more rewarding. And lastly, I still work for a startup or an on-campus job. I say that because a lot of startups, especially like new state startups, they might not offer you any money, but if you're like a freshman or sophomore and you just want some kind of experience, a lot of times they're really willing to help. I started working my freshman year for the personal website. I found that to be really valuable, especially because a lot of on-campus jobs or even jobs within like a club like WASCU or the Corp, you might come into a technical role. It might not be a technical at first, maybe it will be, but the more you do it, the more to see you get, the more comfortable you get. And you can talk about these things in an interview, being like, I'm in this technical aspect and this is what I do. And recruiters will really find that to be valuable.
Go back. Just one thing to add on. There's something in common with all three of these. It doesn't really matter which one you choose, but it's kind of just like doing something. It's kind of the most important part. It's super easy to get overwhelmed and like see what other people have done, but kind of the truth of it is like your first project is like probably the hardest to do. And the second one is probably going to be easier and you might be able to use some skills from the first one. And the third, fourth, fifth, everything is you're gonna be much quicker at making things and it's gonna be much easier for you to do stuff. So the quicker you can start your first project, whatever it may be, the quicker you can kind of start building your experience and make yourself look really good for a recruiter.
And you can back it, but I find a lot of times people come to us and be like, oh, like, what should a project be?
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't think too much about the project, like just build something. Don't try to make it perfect or but have like a great idea to like solve some real problem, just like build something.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like $1 million startup. Like it can literally just be like a task app or like a to-do app or something to wake you up when Apple alarm like fails or something. I think I also play soccer, so the first thing I made was just a simple soccer website. For a league of like 20 people at home. And that was all. But like using that, I then went and did like a bunch of other stuff. So it's really helpful just to start small and do something, and then you can build off of it.
Also, not here is I think hackathons are a good experience because it kind of forces you for a day to like make something. So nothing for your resume or something to help you learn, right? It's like you have this framework and you have this competition. It's like if you win, you can win money, which is cool. But even if you don't, like you made something at the end of the weekend or whatever it was, which I think is another great experience of how to just learn how to like build something and kind of learn new tech stacks.
Which one did you do?
Which we did
You
the
won next.
no that was so that was the Georgetown one. I didn't do that one.
Georgetown does a hackathon every year.
The Hoya hacks.
But yeah, they call it Hoya Hacks. And it usually has pretty good sponsors, which means pretty good prizes. First place, either last year or 2 years ago, was like each person won an Xbox and like a bunch of like cloud credits and stuff.
There's a healthcare one at Georgetown, and I think winner got 10K.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's cool to just get some people that you know and try these, even if you don't win, it's probably a good experience.
Yeah.
And if you do win, you can get a ton of money, which is nice.
And then for networking strategies, I feel like networking isn't always talked about as much in tech as in maybe like consulting or IB. But I feel like in any avenue where you want to have your face out there, it's good to network. So two strategies I have is a cold message recruiters, cold message analysts, cold message higher ups. Because you kind of just want to have your face out there. The thing about recruiters is they're gonna scan all these names, all these resumes. But if they see a resume next to somebody that they've already met, like in their brain, it's just gonna like click. And then I know that person. Like I already met them. Like I'm going to flag them, or I'm gonna give them the OA or whatever. Like it's like just one step a helping hand along. I use Rocket Reach, and Rocket Reach is really cool because if you take someone's LinkedIn, you can like I might even make an account for this, so I'm able to show you guys. But yeah, but the idea is you take someone's like LinkedIn, you paste it in, show you their email, and you can just cold message them and be like, hey, I'm Chris, I'm a freshman at Georgetown, so computer science. I see that you were the company ABC, this position. I'm really passionate, like whatever. Can I get on a call with you, talk more about like this role, that kind of stuff? I really think that goes a long way because most people aren't doing that. To really care about a position, I think just showing the intent of I want to talk to you and learn more about it, really just put yourself out there. I think it really makes you seem like a more serious candidate than somebody who just mass applying to like a million different things. And the recruiter goes, I've been way to differentiate like person A with person B. And the second thing is reaching out to new guys and analysts because one, they were recently in your shoes. They understand like where you guys just were in the current climate and like job market environment. Especially the Georgetown alums, like love to help you out cross industry, especially in tech. And I think that they are also really helpful for like if you want a referral. But at the company referrals might go a long way, they might not. They don't like they always help to ask. Um, and if you literally talk to them, be like, what do you do? I think what you do is interesting. I think it's sick. More times than not, if you go, I'm applying for this job, like, did you get a referral or would you be willing to write me a referral? They will say yes. So that's my other, I think, interesting tidbit there. Um, more helpful tips, apply early. I think I already said this, but you want to be one of the first apps out there. You don't want to like be the last person. I mean, everything's rolling. I'm not saying that like you won't get the job if you like apply late, but the earlier you apply, the earlier chance you get to go through the interview process. I think it puts you in a position. Whenever you make a either portfolio website or your resume, and this goes to quantify your impact, just really show how you kind of owned your work on your project, whether it was in a club, whether it was a your personal project, right? Really just trying to emphasize like I did this and it either impacted or improved whatever existing like thing by whatever percent, or it really benefited my life in like this percent. So that's another thing. And lastly, try to stay consistent. I had a notion to track like my applications and my legal problems and like how I solve them, my notes. And that for me helped me kind of not feel so overwhelmed because it is a lot. There's so many different prompts you can do, so many like things to apply for, so much just like material out there. But I try to consolidate that like in a way to help me kind of feel like more calm, kind of more zen. I think this way also, maybe if you apply, it's your sophomore year, come back to junior year, you can see what worked, what didn't work. You can see your problems. Like if it was for leak code, I think it's really nice refresher if you have the solutions kind of written down somewhere, at least the notes. Like what like was it like it wasn't easy, like what was a pattern type? Like how did you solve it? Like I thought that's be really helpful for me when going back to review. And yeah, that's all I have. Any questions?
All right, thanks for doing this.
Of course.
Thank you.
Yep. Look out of this.
Use X out, I think.
Yeah.
Peace.
course.
Thank you. Of course.
Also, just a show of hands, how many of us have a LinkedIn? And if you don't, that's completely fine. It's a pretty good way for someone to figure out who you are, and it's a pretty good way for you to figure out like what other people are doing. I don't know, would you say it's kind of just like a nice to have?
Yeah, it's like recruiters pay my time on there and my talking about that.
Yeah.
When we were fighting off this spot for LinkedIn, they all want to know when you're done. Like, we'll take your resume.
Yeah. Like I mean, you don't have to have finished it, but like we're all making a portfolio website, or at least a basic one. LinkedIn kind of serves as a portfolio just for yourself, for both non-technical people and as just like a common format that recruiters know for people that are technical. So it kind of just showcases who you know, what school you went to, some of your skills, and like the projects you've worked on. Just like a resume and just like a portfolio website. For some reason, tech people have 3 ways to show the same thing. Awesome. Okay. What time is it? I'm gonna transition to some JavaScript. We're gonna do like a quick code along for the remainder of the class. Please, if anyone has a question for myself or Chris while he's here, do not hesitate to float it. Nothing is stupid. I promise everybody is like new to this at one point. So whether or not you learned something here, or you already knew it, everything's a good question. And you are absolutely not too late. Most of you are freshmen. Even if you're a sophomore or a junior, uh, there are always opportunities. This is not like investment banking where you're cooked if it's like after half of sophomore year. Like tech is like very quick to like you apply and then you just get the job. Doesn't have to be like a 2-year commitment. Cool. Y'all can like stand up and stretch or do whatever you want while I switch over some stuff. Chris, today I was looking through my email and GitHub charged me $4 for like a pro membership, which is like the sleaziest thing because they made me put in my credit card details to get Copilot. If anybody here sees a charge from GitHub, quickly like refute it and then also switch to the free tier. I didn't even know that I was put on like a $4 a month thing. Yeah, it is kind of crazy. I will say it is like I probably should be paying them $4 a month to be fair. What? You do pay? Yeah, that's definitely it. Is it for your code space? Oh, valid. Okay. Mm, okay. Hopefully chat cooks. Uh, I'll quick just pull. Is everybody familiar with JavaScript? Sorry, is anybody familiar with JavaScript? Raise your hand. Cool. Um, and then of all of those people, has anybody used TypeScript? Do we even know what that is? A little bit. Okay, sick. Uh, Wonderful. So I'm gonna do this like 101 style, and we're essentially just gonna go through JavaScript as a coding language, and then why the heck it's relevant to us for web development. Um, I had chat kind of cook up just like some boilerplate for me. So that it makes a little more sense. Give me 1 sec. Okay, so if I call it index.js. One sec. Okay. Feel free to follow along. If you don't want to follow along, this is recorded and will be on like Google Classroom and on our YouTube. But I'm basically just gonna go through the very basics of JavaScript. If any of you have ever used Python, this is essentially just doing like a hello world demo and like going over ints and strings and whatnot. Same with C++. Uh, and then we're gonna go over how it's kind of useful for building websites. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit and I'm gonna turn the music off. Okay. Uh, so we'll start with like what even is JavaScript? Um, Similar to Python, JavaScript is a language that is interpreted in real time. Uh, we all use C++ in class. Raise your hand if you don't take any CS classes at Georgetown. Sick. All good. But basically, when we use C++, what we do is we write some code in a file, and then we use the class server or oh my gosh, or our own compiler, and we basically turn the C++ code that we can read into machine code, and then it is executed. What's cool about JavaScript, and Python also has this property, is basically there is some engine somewhere. In our case, for JavaScript, usually that is in a web browser. So Google Chrome, Safari, they all have JavaScript interpreting engines. Uh, we can also download Node.js onto our computer. So if you ever heard of Node.js, that is what we call a runtime environment, or something that can run your JavaScript code on your computer. Uh, a fun fact about JavaScript is I'm pretty sure it was written in 7 days. And the reason it's called JavaScript is because the dude that made it, I'm actually just going to pull up his name to do it some justice. Um, So JavaScript was written in 1995, and it was also literally written in 10 days. So someone created a coding language in 10 fucking days, which is crazy. If you ever take the programming languages course at Georgetown, Chris and I took it, uh, you'll understand how crazy that is. Um, so JavaScript was kind of like very quickly thrown together. Um, there are a lot of properties that piss off developers, but it's also what powers like most of the internet. Um, so whatever anyone says about it, it's pretty impressive. The reason it's named JavaScript is literally just because Java was really popular. So this Brendan guy literally just said, okay, I'll name it something very close to Java so that people are like, oh, they're probably related. Have you ever heard of Java? JavaScript has absolutely no relation to it at all. They're actually like very, very different. Um, they was literally just riding the hype train. Have you ever take advanced programming with Ray Essick? Um, he will, or whoever it is that you take it with, you'll go into a lot of Java, um, but very different than JavaScript. So we'll go back here. Uh, Java is not a typed language. Sorry, JavaScript is not typed. What does that mean? We don't really say that variables are ints or strings. They can be, but similar to Python, we kind of just like make variables. We don't really tell ourselves what they are. So if I want to make a variable that's like my name, all I do is I use the let command, and that just says that the variable name is going to be Matt. Once again, notice we don't say uh like in C++, you would say something like string name is equal to Matt. We don't do that in JavaScript. It kind of just like figures it out, which causes a lot of problems and is a huge reason that we use TypeScript. Uh, yeah, you can do a lot of weird things with JavaScript, not being typed. So let's see. Similar to C++, we also have constants. So variables we use let for. If you want a constant, so if let's say you want to set like the number of pixels that something is, um, you could say like const pix is 100. Um, JavaScript, you end each line with a, I'm sorry, I don't think this is big enough. Can you guys let me know? Is this like, can we see this? Are we good? Cool. You end each line with a semicolon. Um, but it's kind of like, I don't want to say a normal programming language, but this is kind of like the basis of it. It's got for loops. You make there's variables. You can run one line at a time, just like Python, or you can make an entire script. It's something that we will figure out is like, how do I run this JavaScript code right now? Let's do what we always do when we program, uh, or when we learn a new language is, uh, what you want to do is print hello world. The way that we do that is we essentially, uh, consult something called the console. Um, and we are going to make like a log or like a message. And we're going to write hello world as a string, which we denote with quotation marks. Um, if we want to get fancy, we can make the hello world a variable. So in this case, message would have hello world, and then I would no longer need um, to have that string in there. This is much cleaner, and this would write uh, hello world to the console. But again, what is the console? So let's go over to Chrome. Um, it's been a minute since I've done this, but basically we can use dev tools like we've been doing when we write our own websites. I'm gonna close the door. The way that you get these dev tools that I've pulled up is use the F12. If you're on Windows, you can also two finger or right click and hit inspect. But basically Chrome and all other web browsers are built to run JavaScript code because it helps your websites. It gives them functionality. As a result, Chrome is also just like a playground. You can just write your own JavaScript code. So if we go over here, when we pull up the F12 menu, we can see that some of the screen becomes like elements, console, so all these tabs. If you go to console, so I'll quick show, we consulted console before. And real quick, if you were following along, just make sure all JavaScript files have a .js. That just lets any IDE know that you are using JavaScript. But basically when we come to the dev tools and we go to the console, I'm gonna make this like my whole thing and I'm gonna make it bigger. Wonderful. We can now run JavaScript code. So let's actually print hello world. Let me quick figure out how to actually run it. Okay, that should be good. And then I forgot to add a semicolon. One sec. Message. So let's make sure we have. I'm gonna like do anything. So to run any line in the console, you're gonna hit Control and Enter. So if you type let message equal hello world. I forgot the semicolon again. Okay, I think that's good now. And then you console.log message. Let's see if that works. There we go. So all we're doing here is we're using Chrome as like almost like the terminal for Python or almost like the class server for C++. Uh, Essentially what happens here is Chrome takes the JavaScript code. I'm sorry about the noise. And then when you hit Control and Enter at the same time, it runs the code. No need to like compile it and then run the output file. It just takes the basically plain English that we write and creates or it just runs it and then it'll give us the output. When you are running a website that has JavaScript, this is what's happening behind the hood. Chrome is just running it basically in the console. I'll quickly just say I don't really have any slides on it right now. But when we went back to the intro to websites as a whole, we talked about how website files, which we learned that like we can host a website with Vercel, we can get a domain from something like Squarespace. Squarespace will redirect our IP, or sorry, it'll redirect from the domain that we buy to the IP that Vercel will be hosting our website files on. Those website files are HTML, CSS, and then JavaScript is the last one. We are now learning JavaScript, and once again, you can see that Chrome runs it just like it'll run when we do open server on HTML and CSS. I'll add now before we continue just the basics of JavaScript. This is like a super basic HTML file. Basically, the way that we add JavaScript to HTML and CSS, the way that we put everything together, is in the body of any HTML file. So if we take a look where my cursor's at, basically this is just an HTML file. We're very familiar with this. We have our head, which is what I'm showing here. Basically in our body, all you have to do is say, okay, we're just gonna link a script. It's a tag, just like any other, and it has an attribute, which is source. And we just name it whatever we have called our JavaScript file. And then when we open this index.html with what is it called? Live server? Where is it? Come on. Did I zoom in too much? Let's see. Oh no, I see it. Open with live server. So, now when we open with live server, what used to happen was our HTML and our CSS. The CSS, I'll quick remind everybody, we use the link to get it, and we call it a style sheet, and we also have an href to tell us where in our like file path it is. The JavaScript is now linked with it, and all three website files are basically being rendered by Google Chrome. Let me pull it up. So now we can add some functionality. Let us go back to JavaScript. Okay, what's next? We done logging. We can do data types. I'm just gonna copy this over because I don't really want to waste everyone's time. And we only have 10 more minutes. But basically, JavaScript has a ton of different data types. These are like the normal ones. Everybody knows strings, everybody knows numbers. JavaScript has a null data type. How many of us are familiar with like what null means? If you do not raise your hand, that's completely fine. Null is like nothing. If I don't answer a question on a survey, my response is null. Like I haven't even done it. It's not that I didn't even answer it. It's just hasn't happened. Null doesn't mean zero. Null is like it's just the data type for kind of like nothing. Um, and then undefined is another one. Uh, these two will basically come up a bunch for like I don't know. They'll cause actually more errors than they are useful, but they come up a bunch when we like don't do things and want to make sure that we either catch that we haven't done something or that we are doing something. Um, Booleans we all know, true, false, um, string, number. I Let me quick check. Numbers, I think. Chris, do you know if JavaScript has anything other than just number? It might have float as well. No, I think JavaScript kind of just does numbers. Like C++ does ints, so integers, and then it also has floats, which are floating point or decimal numbers, and then it also has like longs. Have a good one. Um, and unsigned stuff. JavaScript doesn't really care. Yeah. Those are just strings. There might be, but I think everyone just use it. Does JavaScript have chars? No, it's just those will just be like strings with one character. You'll quickly learn that this is kind of like how everything is in JavaScript. They just like have a couple things and they all fit in to one of the few things. If we want to figure out what data type something is, similar, like Python has a bunch of this, and then C++ should have this. But we can use the type of, um, and we can like console log this, or this is the same thing as like printing or couting. We just saw in Chrome. So if you were to run one of these in the console and then do a type of, this would just tell you what type that variable was. Let's do the third thing. Yeah. So strings are interesting. Let's go back in here. So something that we're gonna get used to, which is like a huge pattern in JavaScript, is using like class or what's the word? Chris, what's it called when there's a function that's part of a class? A method? Yeah. Using like class methods or functions. What does that mean? If we're not super familiar with classes, essentially, uh, when you add two numbers together, you can use the plus sign, and like all languages that have the number class or integer or whatever it is, know that adding two things together makes like 2 + 2 is 4. If you were to try and add like the word hello and the word world, those are two strings. You kind of have to like tell your language how to deal with that. And the point of a class is you can kind of define these like operators to do different things. And you can also write methods so that they only work on like that data type. So there's a bunch of built-in functions for strings. One of which is super convenient, is if you have any text, I'm sure C++ has this too, you can just do, so if you have any string, you can take the variable that the string is in, and you can use dot to uppercase. You can look up the documentation, but there's a, like, if you think there's a JavaScript, like if you think there's a function that would be convenient to do something, chances are that it exists. So basically, if you have a string, there's a lot of built-in functions that you can like add on with like this period. So you can just dot something, and add a function to it. If you want to check the length of a string, that's just dot length. And if you want to, in an output, have both string and a variable, JavaScript, for whatever reason, decided to make it the variable accessible when you do a certain type of string. So I'll zoom in here. This is like kind of niche, but it does come up. If you do, it's the same key that like has a tilde. Um, but if you do like the super, like the coming down, um, quotation mark, I don't really know what it's called. Uh, this allows you to basically inside of it write strings. So this is a string with a um oh, they're called template literals. This is a string with a var inside. And then basically to access any variable, you would do $sign and then open and close curly brackets. And inside of that, you can do, I don't know, I have text from up above. Um, so that's just like another thing you can do with strings. All of those are like pretty useful. You would end up using those at some point. Uh, Arrays. So if you're short term storing data, if you have like a form that's collecting people's ages and I don't know, their height, um, let's say this is like you're going to the student health center. What they could be doing when they give you that like weird form they have to do the QR code for is like every time you answer a question, they might just be adding it to an array that literally lives in your Safari, which is made with like which they're writing with JavaScript. And they're literally just saying like let answers equal, and then every time you answer a question, they're just writing like dot append. Um, or it's dot push. But basically, you can have lists. You create them with open and close brackets, and you have commas in between. Much like in Python, a list can have anything. So you can have like a string and then a number and then a Boolean. Like it doesn't really matter because JavaScript doesn't care about types. I believe. You can index a list much like in Python. If you're not familiar with Python, basically, indexing a list here is like, if you do the variable name for an array, and one more time, an array is another data type because JavaScript just does it like that. So same way you'd do like you'd make an integer or a string, you would just use brackets to denote that it's going to be an array. Uh, if you call the variable and then you open close brackets and you have any number inside, 0 will be the first element, 1 will be the second, 2 will be the third. And then if you do -1, that should be the last. -2 comes to the middle. -3 here would come to the front of the list. If you want to add something to an array, pushes it to the end. So after this dot push, basically you go red, green, blue, and then yellow would be added on. We can do an object and then we can do everything else next time. This is where it starts to get pretty useful. And we use objects all the time. So if you make a variable and inside that variable, all you do is you write some letters in between quotation marks, that's a string. If you just write some numbers, that's a number. If you have brackets, that's going to be an array. If you type lowercase true or lowercase false, that's going to be a bool, or a boolean. If you type null, that's going to be a null. So if you type, and the reason I said all that is the only way JavaScript can figure out what you're trying to make a variable, like what type it is literally just by like context. So if you open and close parentheses, sorry, curly brackets, then JavaScript's gonna know you're trying to make like a class or like basically a new data type, which is a combination of data types that we already know. In this case, we're gonna make a person object. And each person object has a first name, a last name, and an age. It's crazy that chat knows my name and age. That's like kind of scary, actually. And when we make this type of an object, what's really cool about it is with just one variable, with just person, we now know for that object itself, we can access the first name and the age, and we could also access the last name. But you can access each piece of it by just doing a period. This is, I think, similar to a class in C++, except you don't have to like make the whole class header and all the declarations and then like put it in a separate header file and then go and make like it's very simple. Just open curly, close curly, and everything goes in between. You space it out with a colon, and then you can have a class with a bunch of different things. This will be super useful. But for now, I'm gonna end it here, and we'll pick up Thursday. I'll let you know if we push to next week, with more JavaScript, and then we'll actually put it into a website as well. Yeah. Once again, if you have any questions for Chris or myself about recruiting, or just how to network, or even if that made no sense because you're like really starting out, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Everyone starts somewhere. But yeah, with that, have a good Tuesday and Wednesday, and then I should see you guys all Thursday. Then we'll do some more JavaScript.